World of Ideas. Global Village Theory. Canadian media theorist Marshall McLuhan is the first person to popularize a revolutionary concept that fundamentally changed how people thought about media, communication, and technology to this day. He coined the term global village theory in 1964. His theory is a theory to describe the phenomenon of the world's culture shrinking and expanding at the same time due to persuasive tech advances that allow for instantaneous sharing of culture. He described this as an electronic nervous system that is rapidly integrating the planet. Events in one part of the world can easily be experienced from other parts, similar to the human experience of a small village living. Few examples are YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram that connected people all over the world. Thanks to technology, popular music, and globalization. Popular music serves as the gateway to explore the representations and meanings with associated music, making it a time of globalization. When the term globalization and music are put together, they tend to conjure up critical reflections regarding the notions of culture, place, and identity. Indeed, music participates at once in the reinforcing of boundaries of culture and identity and in subverting them. Friction. Music of the Black Atlantic is one of the best examples of the productivity in their music is the spirituals that were born out of Christianization of slaves in the US and would eventually give birth to gospel music after emancipation. Most forms of music described today as popular or mass music are derived today in one way or another from practices that appeared within societies organized around slavery in territories conquered by Europeans. Legend has it that world music came to be as a label in 1987, following a series of meetings by music industry actors in the UK in order to decide on how to identify and then market a growing number of recordings fusing Western and different types of non-Western musics that defy the categories of genre that were established then. Recordings whose sales were demonstrating an increasing interest by audiences for third world artists. Religion and globalization. Religion has long been a neglected object of study in the social sciences. When it comes to religion entanglement with globalization, relevant studies are practically non-existent. As a theoretical topic, religion and globalization does not constitute a foreign subject to the sociological study of religion. Scholars have continued to ignore the relevance of religion in the study of globalization processes through a religious prism. Transnational studies is the emergent interdisciplinary field that emerged gradually since the 1990s. It is when new immigrants or transmigrants who move from third world developing countries into developed first world nations. New migrants are no longer assimilated into the cultures of the host countries, but rather openly maintain complex links to their homelands. The migrations of faiths across the globe has been a major factor, and that is the territorialization of religion. For religion and culture, it concentrates on the various processes of referred to as indigenization, hybridization, and localization. Local religion thus represents a genre of expression, communication, and legitimation of collective and individual entities. Based on the survey of history of Christianity, there are four concrete forms of localization. first is indigenization. This is connected to specific fates and survival of a particular ethnic groups. Second is vernacularization, rise of vernacular languages such as Greek, Latin, or Arabic. Third is nationalization, connected to the consolidation of specific nations with particular connections. And fourth, transnationalization, forcing groups to identify with specific religious traditions of real or imagined national homelands or to adopt a more universalist vision of religion. Religion in global conflict. Religion plays a role in some of the most repeated conflict zones of the world, and religious conflicts constitute an increasing share of violent conflicts today. For many individuals and groups, religious beliefs seem to give the moral ammunition to justify and carry out violence. Revolt against global secularism, with Muslim militants explode bombs in the Middle East, Christian extremists attack abortion clinics in the US, Jewish settlers clash with soldiers in Israel, Hindu activists destroy mosques in India, and angry Buddhist monks demonstrate against peace in Sri Lanka. Are these acts of protest about religion, or are they something else? At least not if one defines religion in the narrow sense of theological positions or particular doctrines. Religious and political ideas have been intertwined throughout history and around the globe. In a number of rebellions against authority, from the Maccabean revolt in ancient Israel to the Taiping rebellion in China, the Wahhabiyya movement in Arabia, and Puritanism in England have been religious in character. The new movements are different from their historical predecessors in that they are reactions to the modern nation-state and in some cases are attempts to forge a synthesis with it. Since the nation-state is a specific political form that originated in the modern West, responses to it evoke specific ethnic loyalties and religious commitments, characterized by growing anti-American and anti-European sentiment in the 1990s. In this stage, the target of the religious activists' wrath shifted from local regimes to international centers of power. Increasingly, the political and economic might of the United States and Europe became regarded as the source of problems both locally and worldwide. Within the past decade, religion has been associated with some of the world's most strident forms of political encounter, including new movements of nationalism, the clerical leadership of political sects, and the religiously motivated acts of terrorism. Religious resurgence in an era of globalization. After the Cold War, it was the energies of Islam that mounted the greatest threat to the sort of world order that the West was championing, which rested on a domestic governance model of constitutionalism and strong private sector economy. The role of governmental institutions was to become mainly a facilitative one, especially with respect to the smooth operations of the world economy. This vision of a future based on liberal values of moderate states and robust markets was widely promoted as the best path to progress and prosperity, especially as underpinned by a growing willingness of government to acknowledge the authority of human rights. Religious dimensions post-Arab Spring. Before the protests at Tahrir Square that toppled the Mubarak regime in 2011, many Egyptian activists were convinced that bloodshed was the only strategy that would work against such a ruthless dictator. They imagined that their acts of terrorism against the regime and against the far enemy of America that they assumed was propping up the Mubarak system would eventually lead to a massive revolt that would bring the dictatorship to an end. They also fought that only jihadi ideology of cosmic warfare based on Muslim history and Quranic verses, the dramatic popular uprising in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Bahrain, Yemen, and Syria demonstrated.